He gently placed his hand on her 7-month pregnant belly, tears welling in his eyes. I know we just met, but I want you to know that you're not alone anymore, he whispered. What happened next would change both their lives forever. If you're touched by this story of unexpected connection and second chances, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming real-life stories that remind us love finds us in the most surprising ways. Rachel Morgan stared at her reflection in the restaurant bathroom mirror, smoothing her maternity dress over her prominent baby bump. At 7 months pregnant, she couldn't hide it even if she wanted to. And tonight, on this blind date her well-meaning friend Sophia had arranged, she definitely wanted to. What had she been thinking, agreeing to meet a stranger when she was clearly expecting someone else's child? This is ridiculous, she muttered, adjusting a strand of auburn hair that had escaped her careful styling. He's going to take one look at me and walk right out. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sophia, stop hiding in the bathroom. He's already at the table and he seems really nice. Give him a chance. Rachel took a deep breath, gathering what little courage she had left. 6 months ago, when her boyfriend of 3 years discovered she was pregnant, he'd packed his bags and disappeared from her life without a backward glance. Since then, she'd thrown herself into preparing for single motherhood, setting up a nursery in her small apartment, attending birthing classes alone, and working extra hours at the publishing house to save for maternity leave. Dating was the last thing on her mind. Until Sophia's persistent matchmaking. Just one dinner, her friend had pleaded. Jason is my husband's college roommate. He's kind, stable, has a good job. Just meet him once, and if there's no spark, I'll never bother you again. Now, Rachel reluctantly made her way back to the table, where a broad-shouldered man with kind eyes stood up as she approached. His warm smile faltered slightly when his gaze dropped to her belly, but to her surprise, it quickly returned. You must be Rachel, he said, extending his hand. I'm Jason Bennett. Yes, and I'm. She gestured awkwardly to her stomach, obviously pregnant. Look, I understand if you want to call it a night. Sophia should have mentioned my situation. Jason pulled out her chair. Why don't we enjoy the dinner we both got dressed up for? Unless you're not feeling well enough? Rachel sat down, surprised by his response. No, I'm fine. Just embarrassed. Don't be, he said simply, taking his own seat. So, Sophia tells me you work in publishing? The conversation flowed more easily than Rachel expected. Jason was thoughtful and articulate, asking questions about her job editing children's books and sharing stories about his work as an architectural engineer. He had a quiet confidence that put her at ease, and for the first time in months, she found herself laughing genuinely. It wasn't until their entrees arrived that Jason hesitantly brought up her pregnancy. May I ask how far along you are? 7 months, Rachel replied, bracing herself for the inevitable awkwardness. Instead, Jason nodded. My daughter Emma was born in winter too. There's something magical about bringing a new life into the world when everything outside is quiet and still. Rachel nearly choked on her water. You have a daughter? Yes, she's 4 now. His expression softened with unmistakable paternal pride. She's staying with my parents tonight. Sophia didn't mention you had a child, Rachel said, feeling a strange mix of surprise and relief. And she didn't mention you were expecting. Jason smiled. I think our mutual friend might be playing matchmaker more deliberately than we realized. As the evening progressed, Jason shared more about Emma and his journey as a single father. His wife had left when Emma was just 6 months old, overwhelmed by motherhood and claiming she wasn't ready for the responsibility. It was the hardest year of my life, he admitted. Learning to be both parents, working full-time, dealing with the grief of a failed marriage. But Emma and I figured it out together. Rachel felt tears threatening. I'm terrified, she confessed. I've read all the books, taken all the classes, but I still don't know if I can do this alone. Jason's expression grew serious. You're already doing it. You're here, you're preparing, you're moving forward despite being scared. That's what parenting is, doing what needs to be done even when you're terrified. When the check came, Jason insisted on paying. Consider it a thank you, he said. This is the first date I've enjoyed in a very long time. Outside the restaurant, an unexpected rain shower had begun. Jason offered Rachel his jacket and walked her to her car, holding an umbrella over them both. I'd like to see you again, he said as they reached her vehicle. If you're interested. Rachel hesitated. Jason, you're wonderful, but my life is about to get very complicated. The baby's father isn't in the picture, and I'll have a newborn soon. Dating me comes with a lot of baggage. Rachel, he said gently, everyone has baggage. Some of us just have smaller carriers than others. He smiled. I'd like to know you better. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people getting to know each other. Before she could respond, the baby kicked hard enough for Jason to notice the movement beneath her dress. Without thinking, Rachel took his hand and placed it on her belly. Someone has an opinion about that. Jason's eyes widened as he felt the strong kick against his palm. For a moment, they stood connected by this simple, intimate gesture, a pregnant woman, a single father, and the promise of new life between them. May I? He asked, and when she nodded, he knelt down, his face level with her belly. Hello in there, he said softly. Your mom is pretty amazing, you know that? You're both very brave. When he stood, there were tears in his eyes. My daughter asked Santa for a baby brother or sister last Christmas, he said with a small laugh. I told her some wishes take time. Rachel felt something shift inside her, not the baby this time, but something in her heart. I'd like to see you again too, she said. Their second date was at a children's museum with Emma, who was delighted to meet the lady with the baby in her tummy. The little girl with Jason's warm eyes and curious nature took Rachel's hand without hesitation, pulling her from exhibit to exhibit with boundless enthusiasm. Daddy says you make books for kids, Emma said as they sat in the museum cafe sharing a plate of cookies. I help make them, yes, Rachel replied. Can you make one about me? Emma asked, chocolate smeared across her cheek. Emma, Jason gently admonished, Rachel is very busy with her job and getting ready for her baby. Actually, Rachel said, feeling a warmth spread through her chest, I think a story about a brave little girl named Emma sounds wonderful. Over the next month, Rachel and Jason saw each other twice a week. He helped her assemble the crib she'd been struggling with, and she helped Emma with a school project about butterflies. They shared meals, stories, fears, and increasingly, hope. When Rachel went into labor 3 weeks early, it was Jason who drove her to the hospital, who called Sophia to bring her overnight bag, who held her hand through the first terrifying contractions before the nurses ushered him to the waiting room. 12 hours later, Rachel held her son for the first time, 7 pounds, 4 ounces of perfect new life with a shock of dark hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything. Would you like to meet someone? She asked the tiny bundle in her arms when Jason knocked softly on her hospital room door. He entered cautiously, Emma's small hand in his. The little girl's eyes grew wide at the sight of the baby. This is Noah, Rachel said, her voice thick with emotion. Noah, this is Emma and her dad, Jason. They're very special friends. Jason approached the bed slowly, his expression a mixture of awe and tenderness. He's beautiful, Rachel, he whispered. Just like his mother. Emma climbed carefully onto the foot of the bed. Is he my friend too? She asked. I think he'd like that very much, Rachel replied. As Jason sat beside her, his arm gently supporting hers as she held Noah, Rachel felt a certainty she hadn't experienced since before her ex-boyfriend walked out. This wasn't the family she had planned, but perhaps it was the family she was meant to find. 3 months later, Jason took Rachel and Noah to the park where he and Emma had spent countless weekends. As Noah slept in his stroller and Emma played on the swings, Jason reached for Rachel's hand. These past few months have been the happiest of my life, he said. I know it's been a whirlwind, and we're both still figuring things out, but I've never been more certain of anything. He reached into his pocket and pulled out not a ring, but a small key. This is to my house, our house, if you want it to be. Emma and I have plenty of room, and Noah's nursery could be the room with the morning sun. I'm not asking for marriage, not yet. I'm asking for a chance to build something together, one day at a time. Rachel looked at the key, then at Noah sleeping peacefully, and finally at Emma, who was watching them with hopeful eyes from the swings. What do you think, Emma? She called. Would you like Noah and me to come live with you and your dad? Emma's face lit up as she jumped off the swing and ran toward them. Yes. I can show Noah all my toys and read him stories and help when he cries. Rachel turned back to Jason, tears streaming down her face. I never expected this. When I found out I was pregnant and alone, I thought my chance at happiness was over. Jason gently placed his hand on her cheek. Sometimes life's greatest gifts come disguised as its biggest challenges. As Emma hugged her legs and Jason held her close, Rachel realized that family wasn't always what you planned, sometimes it was what found you when you needed it most. 1 year later, in the backyard of the home they now shared, Rachel watched as Jason helped Noah take his first tentative steps across the grass while Emma cheered them on. Her son's face was alight with determination and joy, his tiny hands gripping Jason's fingers. Look at you, big guy. Jason encouraged as Noah wobbled forward. You're doing it. When Noah finally let go and took 3 independent steps before plopping down on the grass, all 4 of them erupted in cheers. Emma ran to her little brother, covering his face with kisses that made him giggle. Later that night, after the children were asleep, Rachel found Jason sitting on the porch swing, looking at the stars. Penny for your thoughts, she said, joining him. He pulled her close. I was just thinking about our first date. How nervous you were, how surprised I was. Did you really not know I was pregnant before we met? Sophia just said you were special and that I should keep an open mind. He laughed softly. She wasn't wrong. Rachel rested her head on his shoulder. When Noah was born, I was so afraid I wouldn't be enough for him. That he'd grow up feeling something was missing. And now? She looked through the window at their home, Emma's drawings on the refrigerator, Noah's toys scattered across the living room floor, the family photos lining the hallway that told the story of their unexpected journey. Now I know that families aren't made by blood or by plan. They're made by love and choice, every single day. Jason reached into his pocket and this time pulled out a small velvet box. Speaking of choices, he said, his voice suddenly nervous, I have an important one to ask you about. Inside the box was a simple, elegant ring. Rachel Morgan, will you marry me? Will you make this family we've built official? Through happy tears, Rachel nodded. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times, yes. As they sealed their promise with a kiss, Rachel thought about the frightened woman who had stared at her reflection in that restaurant bathroom mirror just 18 months ago. If she could go back and tell that woman what was waiting for her, not just survival, but joy beyond measure, would she have believed it? Perhaps not. But that was the beauty of life's unexpected turns. Sometimes the most difficult paths led to the most beautiful destinations. And sometimes, a blind date with a baby bump was just the beginning of the greatest love story of all. Asterisk if this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more inspiring tales of love, courage, and second chances. Remember, family isn't always what you're born into, sometimes it's what you find when you're brave enough to open your heart, asterisk.